The first time I realized I wasn't alone in that forest was when something whispered my name from the trees, using my exact voice. Not similar, not close, exact. Same pitch, same breath, same slight rasp I get when I'm tired. Except I hadn't spoken a word for almost an hour. First, I honestly thought I imagined it. When you camp alone, your mind plays tricks. Every twig snapping feels louder. Every shadow feels longer. Every rustle feels like something watching. But this wasn't imagination. This was clear, unmistakable, and so disturbingly calm that my body reacted before my brain did. My heart froze. My fingers went numb around the zipper of my sleeping bag. Every instinct screamed the same thing. Do not move. Outside my tent, the forest was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silent where even the wind refuses to breathe. As if the whole world was waiting, watching, holding one collective inhale. Then it came again. Come here. But this time it used a different voice. My mother's. The gentle softness. The warm concern. The tiny upward lilt at the end of her sentences. Except my mother was 3 hours away, safe in her house, probably asleep. The thing that spoke that sentence wanted me to trust it. It wanted me to open the tent. It wanted me vulnerable. I pushed my hand over my mouth, trying to silence my breathing. Something outside stepped on a pile of leaves, slow, deliberate, crushing them one at a time. Crunch. A pause. Then another step. Whatever was out there wasn't an animal. Animals move with rhythm, with urgency or instinct. This thing moved like it wanted me to hear it. Like it knew I was listening. Crunch. Another pause. Crunch. The steps stopped right beside my tent. The thin nylon wall between us might as well have been paper. I could see the shadow now. A long stretched silhouette bending unnaturally, as if leaning down to inspect me. A head that tilted too far to the side. A neck that moved in a slow, curious motion. And then its fingers dragged down the tent. Slowly. Deliberately. Like it was tracing my shape inside. My throat tightened. I couldn't swallow. Couldn't blink. Couldn't even cry. My body locked itself into a silent, shaking freeze. The sound of those long fingers sliding across fabric. I don't know how long it did that. A second? A minute? An hour? Time stopped meaning anything. And then I heard it inhale. A long, slow breath. Right at the wall of the tent. Right beside my head. Like it was smelling me. Every hair on my arms lifted in terror. My lungs begged me to breathe, to do anything, but I knew. If I made a single sound, this thing would know exactly what kind of fear I tasted. And then it whispered again. But this time, it whispered from behind me. Inside the tent. I whipped around so fast I nearly tore the sleeping bag. But there was nothing. No body, no shadow, no face. Just the same suffocating darkness, the same cold air. Then the voice spoke again, this time from outside. Then behind. Then above. Then to my left. Then my right. The same whisper, shifting locations faster than anything could physically move. Like the forest itself was repeating my name. Like the trees were breathing. Like something vast and ancient was circling me. And that's when I realized, I should have never camped alone in these forests. My name is Daniel Hart, and up until that night I never considered myself the kind of person who scares easily. I've been camping since I was 8 years old. My dad practically raised me in the outdoors. Hiking, fishing, chopping firewood, it was all part of who I was. Nature was the one place I felt completely in control. Safer, even than crowded cities or noisy neighborhoods. That weekend, I had driven 3 hours north of my town to a forest I'd visited before. A place called Black Ridge Preserve. Thousands of acres of untouched trees, small streams, and old trails people rarely used anymore. It's the kind of place where you go specifically because no one else does. It was late afternoon when I arrived, maybe around 5 p.m. The sun was still bright, but starting its slow drop behind the tree-line, filling the forest with that warm gold glow that makes everything look softer, calmer, almost nostalgic. I found a small clearing right beside a tall cluster of pines, flat enough for a tent and far enough from the road that I couldn't hear anything man-made. Just the breeze. Just the birds. Just the natural rhythm of the forest breathing around me. I set up my tent, hammered the stakes, tied off the lines, muscle memory at this point. After that, I built a small fire pit using old stones scattered nearby. A few minutes of effort, and flames were crackling gently in front of me, warming the little circle of space that now felt like my temporary home. There's something comforting about that simple routine. Tent, fire, food. Grounds you. Reminds you that you're alive, that you're capable. I spent the early evening roasting a couple hot dogs, sipping from a cold bottle of iced tea I'd packed, and flipping through a paperback mystery novel. I remember the exact feeling of peace in that moment, the soft crackle of firewood, the rustle of leaves overhead, the distant calls of owls waking up for the night. My phone had already lost service about 10 miles before reaching the preserve, but that didn't bother me. In fact, I liked it. No notifications. No distractions. Just me and the forest. By the time the sun dipped completely below the horizon, everything around me had turned into deep shades of blue and gray. But the night wasn't frightening, it was beautiful. A full moon. Clear sky. A soft chill in the air that made the fire feel even warmer. I remember leaning back in my camping chair, taking a deep breath, thinking, this is exactly why I came. Just peace. Just quiet. A break from everything. Around 9 p.m., I threw a couple more logs onto the fire, zipped up my jacket, and listened to the forest settling into its nighttime rhythm. The insects chirping. The distant hoot of an owl. The wind brushing through the pine needles. It was a natural symphony, predictable, comforting. I even spoke out loud to myself at one point, laughing a little at the silence. Man, it's nice out here. I had no reason, not a single hint, to suspect anything unusual. Nothing felt off. Nothing felt dangerous. I wasn't anxious, uneasy, or alert. If anything, it was the most relaxed I'd felt in weeks. I stayed out until the fire burned low, then crawled into my tent around 11 p.m., tired but content. My sleeping bag was warm, the ground was soft enough, and I drifted into that half-awake, half-asleep state where your mind empties and everything feels distant and safe. That was my world, simple, peaceful, predictable. And if I had known that those quiet, gentle moments would be the last calm I'd feel that night, I never would have zipped that tent shut. The first sign that something wasn't normal came long after midnight, subtle enough that I almost ignored it. I woke up to nothing. Not silence. Too much silence. When you camp in a forest, there's always some kind of background noise, crickets, wind, and owl, trees shifting, something. But when I opened my eyes, the world felt emptied. Like someone had pressed mute on the entire forest. I stared at the roof of my tent, confused. My breath formed small clouds in the cold air, colder than it had been earlier. A thin mist hovered low around the floor of the tent, like the ground itself was leaking cold. That uneasy chill crept into my skin. I pushed myself up slowly, listening. Nothing. No bugs. No wind. No animals. No forest. Just a deep, heavy stillness. I unzipped the sleeping bag halfway and sat upright, straining to hear anything familiar. At first, I told myself it was probably just a shift in the weather, maybe temperatures dropped suddenly. But the cold felt intentional, direct, like it had weight to it. Then a sound. Crunch. Faint. Far away. Not a twig breaking from weight. More like something softly stepping on frozen leaves. I held my breath. Listened harder. Another crunch, but this time from a slightly different direction. Like something was moving slowly, carefully, circling the general area of my campsite. I felt the first flicker of unease spark in my chest. My logical brain tried to calm me. Probably a deer. Or maybe a raccoon. Or a fox. Relax, it's nothing. But some deeper part of me, the instinct that doesn't lie, wasn't convinced. The footsteps weren't rhythmic, like an animal's. They paused too often. Too long. As if something was stopping to listen. I swallowed hard and glanced toward the thin fabric wall of the tent. The moon was bright that night, and its light filtered through the material enough to show vague shadows. Every few seconds the shadows shifted, very slightly. Maybe trees swaying? Maybe branches moving? But then I remembered. There was no wind. Not even a breeze. I rubbed my arms, suddenly aware that the cold wasn't fading. It was getting stronger. The kind of cold that slides under your skin, crawls into your bones, lingers in your breath. The uneasy feeling grew heavier. Then came a new sound, so soft I almost thought I imagined it. Tap? A tiny noise like a fingertip brushing something lightly. I froze. Tap. It was faint, almost delicate, but unmistakably close. Right outside the tent. My mouth went dry. I leaned slightly forward, barely breathing, trying to pinpoint it. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow, uneven touches against something fabric-like. My tent. I felt my heartbeat shift, slow, heavy thuds echoing in my ears. Was it a bug? A falling pine cone? Something brushing the side? But the taps stopped the moment my breathing changed, like they were reacting. And then a shift. A soft scrape of dirt. Something settling its weight outside. I didn't see anything, but I felt it. Like a presence pressing against the air itself. Not aggressive. Not loud. Just aware of me. Watching me. Every hair on my arms lifted. My instincts whispered something I didn't want to believe. You're not alone anymore. The cold deepened. The silence tightened. The shadows outside my tent stopped moving. I stayed frozen in place, breath shallow, fear rising slowly like water filling a room. Something out there was standing still, completely still, right outside my tent. Listening. Waiting. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if it had just arrived. Or if it had been there for a very long time. For a long moment I didn't move. Whatever stood outside my tent didn't move either. The silence was so thick it felt alive, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Then without warning the temperature dropped again. Not gradually. Not naturally. It felt like someone had opened a door to a freezer right beside me. My breath turned into a thick fog. The fabric of the tent stiffened with frost. Even the air felt heavier. Dense enough that every inhale scraped like glass. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I slowly reached for the flashlight beside my sleeping bag, fingers trembling. The instant my hand brushed the metal, the thing outside reacted. It exhaled. A long, slow human exhale. My body locked up. That sound, it came from inches away, separated only by a thin layer of nylon. I raised the flashlight with shaking hands, and for a moment I hesitated. Because I already knew, whatever I was about to see, I wasn't prepared for it. Still I clicked the light on. The beam hit the tent wall, pale glowing fabric, and immediately revealed a shape. A silhouette. Tall. Very tall. At least 7 feet. Thin in a way no person should be. Its shoulders sloped unnaturally. Its arms hung too long. Its neck bent slightly like it was lowering its head toward me. I instinctively slapped my free hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The creature stood absolutely motionless. Except for one thing, it was breathing. Slow. Deep. Deliberate. Each exhale made the fabric of the tent tremble. The air inside seemed to vibrate from the sound. My mind scrambled for explanations, any explanation. Person? A lost hiker? Some kind of prank? No. No human stands that still. No human bends like that. And no human whispers your name from the trees like it had earlier. Fear began crawling up my spine in sharp electric jolts. Then the creature moved. Not toward me. Not away. Just shifted its weight slightly, like someone adjusting their stance after standing too long. The motion made the whole tent sway. I choked back a gasp. The thing froze instantly. It was listening again. Through the tent fabric I could see its head tilt, slow, inquisitive, wrong in a way that made my skin crawl. The neck bent too far. The angle was unnatural, like the bones inside didn't match a human skeleton. Then, a sound I will never forget. It spoke. Not clearly. Not like language. It mimicked my own voice. From the shape outside the tent, in a breathy, warped version of my tone, came a whisper. Hey. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly across the tent interior, making the silhouette outside flicker and distort. The creature responded instantly. Its height shifted, grew, and I realized with a jolt of terror that it was rising onto something, maybe its toes, maybe something else entirely. The shadow stretched unnaturally long, reaching almost to the roof of the tent. Then, a single claw dragged across the outside of the fabric. Not a finger. A claw. The sound was quiet but unmistakable. A dry, papery scrape that sliced the silence apart. That was it. My fear snapped into full, blinding survival instinct. This thing wasn't just curious. It wasn't confused. It wasn't lost. It was hunting. And now, it knew exactly where I was. The atmosphere shifted so suddenly it was like the entire forest leaned in closer. The air pressed against my skin. My heartbeat pounded in my throat. Every instinct screamed the same message. If you stay in this tent, you will die. For the first time that night, I understood with absolute clarity. The horror wasn't approaching. It was already here. And it wasn't leaving. I didn't think, I just moved. I tore open the zipper on the opposite side of the tent, the side away from the creature's silhouette. The moment the zipper hissed, the thing outside reacted with a jerky, predatory snap of movement, its shadow lunging toward where I had just been. I dove out into the freezing darkness, the cold air slamming into my lungs like ice water. The forest was dead silent. No wind. No bugs. Not even the distant rustle of animals. Just my heartbeat pounding loud enough to drown out everything. I scrambled to my feet, slipping on pine needles, and sprinted toward the line of trees. My boots smashed against the dirt, each step muffled by the thick moss carpeting the forest floor. I didn't dare look back. I heard the tent collapse behind me, not like someone tripped into it, like something massive dropped onto it. Branches whipped across my face as I plunged deeper into the trees. My legs burned, lungs screaming, but adrenaline dragged me forward. Then crack. Loud. Close. A tree branch snapping under heavy weight. It was following me. I zigzagged through the woods, trying to stay unpredictable. The thing crashed through brush behind me. No stealth now, no curiosity. It was hunting openly, violently. I risked a glance over my shoulder. I shouldn't have. In the faint moonlight, I saw it between the trees, tall, thin, moving with a horrible jerking speed like every step was wrong. Its head lolled from side to side, scanning, listening. It was gaining. I ducked behind a fallen log, dropping onto my stomach and covering my mouth to hide my breathing. Every muscle in my body trembled uncontrollably. The footsteps stopped. Right behind the log. I could see its long, pale fingers curl over the top, gripping the bark like talons. Its breathing was ragged now, rapid, excited, almost eager. It knew I was here. Then, a sound from somewhere deep in the woods. A weird, distant echo. Hey! In my voice. My heart plummeted. There were two of them. The creature at the log twisted its neck slowly toward the sound, so far sideways the bones should have snapped. It made a low, guttural noise like it was answering. I seized my chance. I bolted. This time I didn't hold back. I ran like something primal inside me finally cracked open. The forest blurred around me. My legs were shaking so violently I could barely stay upright, but fear forced them to move. The ground sloped downward and suddenly I was tumbling, sliding down a steep embankment. Dirt filled my mouth. Rocks scraped my skin. I slammed to a stop near a cluster of boulders. Silence. Then, a shriek tore through the forest. Not human. Not animal. Something in between. Followed by those heavy, violent footsteps barreling in my direction. I crawled into a narrow gap between the rocks, squeezing myself into the tightest space I could find. My chest compressed painfully against stone. I couldn't lift my head. I couldn't turn around. I just pressed my face into the cold dirt and prayed the creature couldn't reach me. It arrived seconds later. I felt its weight shake the ground above me. Dust rained down into my hair. Its claws scraped across stone, searching the crevice. Then one long finger slid inside, barely missing my face. I bit down on my sleeve to stop myself from screaming. The creature inhaled deeply, as if smelling the air for me. I stayed absolutely still. After what felt like an eternity, the claw withdrew. Heavy footsteps moved away. Then again. Closer. Farther. It was pacing. Circling. Waiting. Listening. I didn't move for a long time. Not even after the forest finally fell silent again. When I did, it was slow, shaky, careful, because every instinct in my body told me the same thing. I wasn't safe. I had survived the moment. But the night wasn't over. For a long time I didn't move. Not even to breathe normally. I just lay wedged between the rocks, listening to the forest settle into a silence so heavy it felt unnatural. Like even the trees were holding their breath. Eventually, when my legs had gone numb and my throat felt raw from swallowing my own panic, I forced myself to crawl out. Every muscle trembled. The night air felt colder than before, almost metallic like breathing through ice. The forest looked different now, wrong somehow. Still. Frozen. Too quiet. My campsite was somewhere uphill, but I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to see what had become of my tent, or what footprints might be waiting for me in the dirt. But I didn't have a choice. My phone, my bag, my keys, everything I needed to get out was up there. So I started walking. Every branch crack felt like a heart attack. Every shadow looked like a figure. Every gust of wind sounded like my name being whispered again. By the time I reached the ridge, my entire body was shaking. My campsite was gone. Not destroyed. Not torn apart. Gone. No tent. No gear. No ashes from the fire I had burned earlier. Not even the patch of flattened grass where my tent had been sitting. It looked like no one had ever camped there at all. I stood there in the moonlight, frozen, trying to convince myself my mind wasn't breaking. I knew I set up camp right here. I could still picture the angle of the trees, the position of the fire pit, the dirt I cleared away. But the forest floor was untouched. Pristine. Like the night had reset itself. My first thought was to grab my phone and call someone. But I didn't have my phone. It should have been in my backpack. My backpack should have been in the tent. The tent should have been right here. I looked around for footprints, mine or the creatures. The ground was soft enough to leave tracks. There were none. No indentations. No drag marks. Nothing. Like the entire forest had been wiped clean. A part of me wanted to run, just sprint until I hit a road, a cabin, anything. But another part of me told me not to draw attention, not to make a sound. I chose to walk. Slowly. Carefully. But something followed me. Not close. Not loud. Just enough for me to feel it. A faint rhythm behind the trees, keeping pace with me. Never gaining. Never falling behind. Watching. The deeper I went, the more familiar the woods became. Eventually, after what felt like hours, the parking area came into view through the trees, my car sitting alone under the moonlight. Relief washed through me so hard I almost collapsed. I didn't look behind me. I didn't check the woods. I didn't try to understand. I just got in the car, locked the doors, and drove. For 20 minutes I didn't blink. I kept checking the mirrors, expecting to see something crawling out of the tree lean onto the road. Nothing happened, but the dread didn't fade. When I finally reached home, I went straight to the bathroom mirror. I looked horrible, dirty, scratched, exhausted. But I was alive. I turned on the shower and stepped out of my clothes. That's when I noticed it. A handprint. On my side. Pressed deep into the dirt on my skin. Not human. The fingers were too long. The spacing was wrong. And it wasn't a bruise or a smear, it was clean. As if something had grabbed me and wiped away the dirt everywhere except where its palm had been. I froze, staring at it, because I hadn't been touched. Not during the chase. Not in the rocks. Not that I remembered. So when did it grab me? And as I stood there, the shower running behind me, I heard something faint, a voice. My voice. Coming from the dark hallway outside the bathroom. It whispered, "You left something behind." And that's where the story ends, because I still don't know what followed me home.